They thought I was sleeping. They thought I was deaf. But I heard everything. Every filthy word about selling my land, my house, my name, while I was still breathing under the same roof. The basement was cold, damp, heavy with the smell of wet concrete. A single bulb flickered above me, buzzing like a dying fly. The door slammed, and the sound of the lock turning cut straight into my bones. My own family. My own blood. They didn't just shut me in, they buried me alive while I was standing. I leaned against the wall, palms pressed to the rough stone. My breath came out white in the dim light. Above me, footsteps thudded across the kitchen floor. Voices sharp and careless. "She won't last the week down there." Denise, my daughter-in-law, said, "The lawyer just needs to see she can't manage, then the farm's ours." Ours. The word curled in my stomach like poison. That farm had my fingerprints in its soil, my husband's sweat in its beams, my whole life rooted in it, and they talked about it like a prize they'd already won. Eric, my grandson, laughed. My sweet boy once. "By the time the judge sees her, she'll look half crazy. Easy win." Easy win. I sat down on the steps, the wood biting into my spine. My fingers traced the grooves carved decades ago, back when my sons dragged furniture down here, when the house was alive with noise, not betrayal. The silence between their voices and my heartbeat was loud enough to choke on. But instead of crying, I listened. I made myself memorize every word, every tone, every betrayal that spilled from their mouths. In the corner, on an old workbench, sat my husband's toolbox. The lid was rusted, the red paint peeling like scabs. I dragged it closer, knuckles raw against the cold floor. Inside, nails, screws, a broken tape measure. And beneath them, a wooden box tied with twine. I opened it, and the smell of old paper rose up. Letters, dozens of them. My children's crooked handwriting, my husband's steady script, proof of all the nights I'd held this family together. Receipts with my name as guarantor, thank you notes once written in gratitude. The evidence of a woman who gave too much and asked for nothing. I pressed one letter to my chest. "Thanks, Mom. I'll never forget what you did for me." Written by the same son who now planned to erase me. Upstairs, Denise's voice again. "She's useless. We'll have signatures by Friday." My jaw clenched so hard, my teeth ached. Then, salvation faint but clear. The neighbor's doorbell chime. The Johnsons had one of those new cameras. If it caught even a glimpse of what they did, if it showed me being dragged like trash into my own basement, then the game wasn't theirs anymore. Mr. Johnson fumbled with the little tablet linked to his camera. The screen lit up, grainy footage playing. And there it was, Denise's hand shoving my shoulder, Eric pulling the door shut, the lock turning. The picture wasn't perfect, but the sound was clear enough. Denise saying, "She won't last down there. By Friday, it's all ours." Proof. I felt the heat rise in my chest. Not tears. Fire. "Email it to me," I said. "Now." Mrs. Johnson looked uneasy. "Joe, maybe you should call the sheriff." "I will," I cut in, "but first I need to make sure they can't spin this." I pulled the letters from my cardigan, spread them on the coffee table like cards in a gambler's hand. These are their memories, my proof. Their lies won't hold up when the truth is this thick. For a moment, the Johnsons just stared at me. They'd lived across the street from me 30 years, and maybe tonight was the first time they realized I wasn't just some old widow with a pie on Sundays. "I'll help," Mr. Johnson said, finally. His voice was steady now. "We'll back you up." I gathered everything, packed it tight under my arm. Then, before leaving, I looked them both square in the eyes. "Don't open your door to them if they come knocking. This isn't over. They'll fight ugly." The night swallowed me again as I crossed back to my porch. My hands shook, not from fear, but from rage boiling under my skin. Through the kitchen window, I saw headlights flash. They were back. Laughter spilled out as the car door slammed, keys jingled. I didn't move. I waited in the shadows. They walked past me, not even looking. Denise's voice carried, smug and certain. "Tomorrow we'll call the lawyer. She'll be drooling by then." I tightened my grip on the crowbar. For the first time in years, my pulse was steady, strong. I had proof in my pocket. I had neighbors on my side, and I had anger that could level a house. I whispered into the dark porch air, a vow meant for no one but me. "By the time this ends, you'll wish you left me in that basement." Morning came gray and heavy, clouds sagging low over the fields. I hadn't slept a wink. I sat at my kitchen table with the letter spread in front of me, the Johnsons' video already saved on a USB stick. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but the bitterness on my tongue kept me awake. Through the thin curtains, I saw Denise's car roll up the driveway. Too early for pleasantries. She stepped out in her blazer, cheap perfume trailing behind her, the kind that stung the nose more than it sweetened the air. Eric followed, smirking like a boy who thought he'd already won the game. They came in without knocking. My house. And they barged in like it was theirs. "Mom," Denise said with fake sympathy, "we're worried about you. You're confused, leaving doors open, wandering outside at night. We need to talk about putting things in order, for your safety." I looked at her hands. No trembling. She was confident. Too confident. "You've already decided, haven't you?" I said flat. Eric leaned against the doorframe, chewing gum. "The lawyer's ready. Friday you sign, or the court signs for you. Either way, this place won't be your problem anymore." I let silence hang a beat too long. Then I slid the USB stick across the table. The plastic scraped against the wood like a blade. "What's this?" Denise frowned. "Play it," I said. She hesitated. Eric plugged it into his phone with an adapter. The video played. Grainy, yes, but the sound was clear. "She won't last down there. By Friday, it's all ours." And the image of me being shoved through my own basement door, the lock turning. The Eric smirk cracked. Denise's face went pale, then blotchy red. She snapped the phone shut like she could erase the evidence by closing her hand. Where did you get that?" "Neighbors," I said. Calm. Cold. They've already emailed copies. Try deleting it, see what good it does. The room shifted. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in Denise's eyes. You wouldn't, Eric muttered. Oh, I would. My voice was steel. The police, the lawyer, every news station in the county. You wanted to make me look crazy? Try explaining this instead. Denise leaned forward, whispered sharp. We can settle this quietly if you keep this to yourself. I cut her off. No, you tried to bury me in my own basement. Now I'll bury you in your own lies. The words landed heavy. Even the ticking clock on the wall seemed to stop for a moment. Eric's jaw clenched. I stood, slow but steady. My knees popped, but my voice didn't waver. Friday, you said? Let's see who sits in that lawyer's office looking crazy now. They didn't answer. They left in silence. Denise's heels clicking too fast against the porch. Eric's gum spit on my driveway. When their car peeled away, I sat back down at the table. My hands trembled, not from weakness, but from something hotter, momentum. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was fighting back. And by Friday, the whole town would know exactly what kind of children I had raised. They didn't take long to strike back. By Wednesday afternoon, the phone rang twice in a row. Not my son, not Denise, a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. A clipped male voice came through the machine. This is Officer Reynolds. We've had a call expressing concern about your well-being. We'll be sending someone by to check on you. A wellness check. Clever. They'd called in the law, trying to paint me as the one off balance. I almost laughed. Almost. When the knock came, it wasn't a uniform. It was Denise herself standing on my porch with a man in a suit, clean-shaved leather briefcase, smug smirk. A lawyer. Not mine. Theirs. Mom, this is Mr. Clinton. He's helping us make sure everything is safe for you. We just need to review some paperwork. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Paperwork you already forged? Her smile twitched. She forced a laugh. You must be confused. Confused, that word again. They thought if they said it enough, it'd stick like a label. Old, senile, useless. Where's Eric? I asked, scanning the yard. No car in the drive. No sneakers on my porch. Busy, she snapped, then softened her voice. Mom, if you just let us handle things, you wouldn't have to worry. We can take this weight off your shoulders. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Joe, all we need is your signature here. Just a precaution. It gives your family temporary authority. Temporary or permanent once I'm locked away in some home? It's in your best interest. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled the USB stick out of my pocket and dangled it between two fingers like bait on a hook. You really want to push me? Because this little thing is already in safe hands. Every lawyer in town could get a copy if I wanted. Denise's mask cracked. Her eyes narrowed, lips pressed into a line. You think that video will save you. It'll just make you look paranoid. Who's going to believe the ramblings of an old bitter woman? I stepped closer, my shadow cutting across her face. The sheriff, the bank, the church committee, and every neighbor who watched me raise your kids while you were too busy running around.
She flinched, just a flicker, but I saw it. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Joe, maybe we should reschedule. Good idea, I said, slamming the door in their faces. Through the thin glass, I watched them stomp down the porch. Denise's voice carried, sharp and frantic. If that video gets out, we're finished. Do something. The lawyer muttered, We'll challenge its admissibility. Discredit her. Make it about competency. Discredit me? They wanted me silenced on paper before they could silence me in truth. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook, scribbling a list. Neighbors who'd back me, letters I could use, contacts from the senior center who'd testify I was sharper than half the town council. Every name was a nail in their coffin. But I wasn't done. Not nearly. The next morning, I dressed in my iron slacks, my good coat, and marched into First Mutual Credit Union. The manager, a young woman named Trina, led me into her office. "I need to review all co-signers and beneficiaries," I said. She clicked through her screen. "You have one listed, Eric Hemsworth." Of course, that boy had his claws in my accounts already. "Remove him," I said. "Today, reissue everything in my name only. New cards, new logins, new security questions. Lock it all down." Trina hesitated. "Completely remove him?" "Yes, erase him." My voice was stone. Her fingers tapped the keys. "Done." She slid the papers across the desk. "If you'd like to set up a trust, we can do that too." "Not yet," I said, "but soon." By the time I walked out, the chill in the air didn't bite so hard. The world looked clearer. That evening, I cooked for the first time in days. Not for them, for me. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, biscuits. My kitchen smelled alive again. And as I ate, I pictured Denise's face when she realized their leash had been cut. Around 8, the phone rang. Again, a blocked number. I let the machine pick up. This time it was Eric. His voice shook, just a little. "Grandma, look, Denise went too far. I didn't want it this way. Maybe we can talk, just you and me?" I didn't move, didn't blink. I let him finish, then pressed the delete button. No record, no trace. Because talk wasn't enough anymore. Talk was what got me locked in a basement. Friday was coming, and I wasn't walking into that lawyer's office as their victim. I was walking in with evidence, witnesses, and fire in my chest. When the clock struck midnight, I wrote a single line in my notebook. They wanted a crazy old woman. I'll give them something much worse. Friday came with a sharp wind, the kind that rattles windows and makes doors slam harder than you mean them to. I woke before dawn, dressed slow, deliberate. Ironed blouse, navy cardigan with pearl buttons, shoes polished until I could see my face in them. If they wanted to put a show on in that lawyer's office, then I'd give them one. The drive into town felt like a march. Every mile, another beat of war drums in my chest. When I parked outside Clancy and Myers Law, Denise's silver sedan was already there. She always arrived early, like she thought being first meant being right. Inside, the office smelled of stale coffee and cheap carpet cleaner. The receptionist gave me a look I'd seen before. Polite pity, as if she already believed Denise's story about the confused old woman. Let her. Pity is a blindfold, and I'd use it. They were waiting in the conference room. Denise in her blazer, lips painted too red, Eric in a pressed shirt, pretending he belonged in a place like this, and their lawyer, Clancy, tapping his pen against a folder thick with lies. "Mom," Denise said, syrup dripping from her tone, "we're so glad you came. This is just a formality, really. We want to make sure you're protected." Protected. I almost laughed. Clancy slid a stack of papers across the table. "Mrs. Joe, these documents simply authorize your family to assist you with decisions in case of emergency." I sat down slow, placed my purse beside me, and pulled out the USB stick. Set it on the table like a live grenade. Their eyes snapped to it. "What's that?" Eric's voice cracked. "Insurance," I said, calm, measured. "Go ahead, start your little show. When you're finished, I'll play mine." Denise's face flushed. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I dare," I cut in, leaning forward. "This stick holds video of you locking me in my own basement, audio of you saying the farm would be yours by Friday. And copies are already safe with my neighbor, my bank, and one other lawyer who doesn't take bribes." The room went dead quiet. The air conditioner seemed to hush. Clancy cleared his throat, muttered something about legal ramifications, and excused himself, leaving his clients to sink alone.
Denise's lipstick had smeared at the corner of her mouth. Her voice was a whisper. "What do you want?" I leaned back, folded my arms. "For now, nothing. I'll decide later. But know this, every step you take, every word you speak, I'll be watching. And if you try me again, that video won't just sit in my purse, it'll play for the sheriff, the church, the whole damn town." Eric looked like he wanted to speak, but Denise yanked his sleeve. They left in silence, shoes clicking too fast down the hall. When the door closed, I let out the breath I'd been holding. My hands trembled, but not with fear, with release, with power. I walked out of that office taller than I walked in. The receptionist's pitying eyes followed me, but this time I met them head on. She looked away first. On the drive home, the wind picked up, branches whipped against the sky, the kind of weather that warns you a storm's coming. But I wasn't scared. I'd just weathered one. And it wasn't over yet.
They didn't waste time licking their wounds. By Sunday afternoon, the storm I'd seen brewing on the horizon was already at my door. Literally. I was in the kitchen, folding the last of my letters back into their box when the pounding started. Heavy fists on my front door, rattling the glass. Denise's voice carried through, high and sharp. "Open up, Mom. We need to talk." I stayed still. Let her shout. The walls had heard worse. Then another sound. Gravel crunching. Tires in my driveway. A second car. When I peeked through the curtain, my stomach turned. My son, Thomas, had arrived. I hadn't seen him in months, and now here he was, standing beside his wife, arms crossed, eyes cold. So, they'd called in reinforcements. "Mom," Thomas bellowed, "enough games. You're tearing this family apart. Open the damn door." Family. The word meant nothing on his lips. I walked to the door, but I didn't open it. My voice carried through the wood, steady as stone. "Funny. I thought you tore this family apart the day you locked me in my own basement." Silence for a beat. Then Denise hissed, "She's recording us." Good. I moved back to the table, folded the last of my letters back into their box. When the recorder started, heavy fists on my front door rattling the glass. Then another sound, gravel crunching. Tires in my driveway. A second car. When I peeked through the curtain, my stomach turned. My son, Thomas, had arrived. I hadn't seen him in months, and now here he was, standing beside his wife, arms crossed, eyes cold. So they'd called in reinforcements. "Mom, enough games. You're tearing this family apart. Open the damn door." Family. The word meant nothing on his lips. I walked to the door, but I didn't open it. My voice carried through the wood, steady as stone. "Funny. I thought you tore this family apart the day you locked me in my own basement." Silence for a beat. Then Denise hissed, "She's recording us." Good. I moved back to the table, switched on the small recorder I'd borrowed from the Johnsons. Every word from here on out was mine to keep. Through the glass, I saw Thomas run a hand over his face, exasperated. "Mom, you're confused. Denise told me everything. You're not well. We're just trying to help." Help. Always that word. They're poison, disguised as medicine. "You call this help?" I raised my voice. "Draining my accounts? Forging my signature? Locking me underground like an animal? If that's help, I'd hate to see what harm looks like." Denise stepped forward, her lipstick smeared at the corner of her mouth, eyes darting wild. "We'll bury this. Nobody will believe you, not once the courts see the medical reports." Medical reports. My chest tightened. They'd gone farther than I thought. Probably found some quack to write me up as unstable. Thomas's voice softened, false sympathy dripping. Mom, if you just sign the papers, all this can go away. You can live easy. No stress, no trouble. We'll handle everything. I almost laughed. Easy for me, rich for them. That was the real plan. I let the silence stretch, then spoke low, calm, deadly. You want me erased? But I'm not disappearing. Not this week, not this year, and certainly not before every neighbor in this town knows exactly what you've done. Thomas cursed under his breath. Denise tugged his sleeve, hissing something I couldn't catch. They stalked back to their cars, slamming doors, tires spitting gravel as they sped away. I sat at the table, recorder still humming, hands shaking just a little. Not from fear, from fury. By evening, I knew what had to come next. Quiet defense wouldn't be enough. They were doubling down, dragging Thomas into the pit with them, which meant I had to go bigger. Public. The next morning, I called the church, asked Pastor Raymond if I could speak at Wednesday service. I said, just a few words. He didn't ask why. He knew my voice never shook unless it mattered. That same day, I walked into the sheriff's office, handed over the video on a fresh USB stick, the recording of our little doorstep confrontation, and a written statement. Sheriff Peters raised his eyebrows, whistled low, and said, "Joe, this isn't just family business anymore. This is criminal." "Good," I said. "Treat it that way." That night, I sat on my porch under the fading light, sipping tea. My knees ached. My bones were tired. But inside me burned a fire hotter than anything they ever known. I whispered into the night just for myself. You wanted me weak. You wanted me gone. Instead, you've built me a stage. And on Wednesday, I'd step onto it. The church was full that Wednesday night. More full than I'd seen in years. Folks packed the pews, coats slung over arms, whispers humming like bees before the sermon. Word had spread. Maybe they didn't know exactly what they'd come to hear, but they knew it was something worth leaving supper early for. I sat in the front pew, spine straight, the box of letters beside me, and that small USB stick clutched in my palm, like a rosary. My hands didn't tremble. Not this time. Pastor Raymond cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and gave the usual opening prayer. Then he looked my way, nodded once. "Mrs. Joe has asked to say a few words." I stood. The wood beneath my shoes creaked, but my voice didn't. You've all known me a long time. You've eaten my pies at bake sales, borrowed sugar from my pantry, watched my children grow. Some of you even held them as babies. Eyes turned, some curious, some already suspicious. And in the back, I saw them. Denise, Thomas, and Eric, sitting stiff, lips pressed tight, waiting to see how far I'd go. I went all the way. My family, I said, the word sour in my mouth, locked me in my own basement last week. They told each other I wouldn't last, that by Friday, everything I owned would be theirs. Gasps broke out, whispers flared like sparks. They told themselves I was confused, unstable, unfit. But what they forgot is this. I held up the USB. Truth doesn't confuse. Truth doesn't forget. Truth records. Pastor plugged the stick into the projector, and grainy footage filled the wall. Denise's voice rang out clear as a bell. She won't last down there. By Friday, it's all ours. The room erupted. People shifted in pews, muttering, some outright shouting. I didn't look at Denisa, but I could feel the heat of her glare boring into my back. I raised my hand for quiet. My voice cut through the chaos. These are the children I raised, the ones I gave my life for. And this is how they repay it? By trying to bury me before I'm gone, by stealing what I built with my own 2 hands. I laid the letters on the pulpit, one by one, notes from school, receipts, thank yous from decades past, each page a piece of history, a nail hammered into their coffin. I don't want your pity, I said sharply. I want your eyes open. Don't let anyone, family or not, convince you you're worthless when you've carried the world on your back. Silence followed, heavy, unshakable. Then a single clap, then another. Soon the whole room stood, applause echoing off the rafters. In the back, Denise's face had gone pale, her lipstick smeared. Thomas looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Eric stared at the floor. Sheriff Peter stepped forward, his badge catching the light. Mrs. Joe, we'll handle the rest. His gaze flicked to my family, hard as iron. You 3, stay seated. We've got questions. I stepped down from the pulpit, my legs steady, my chest light. The whole town had seen. The lie was dead. Outside, the night was crisp, the stars sharp. I breathed deep, the air colder than my lungs wanted, but cleaner than it had ever been. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for footsteps that never came. I wasn't begging for a seat at a table where I was unwanted. I had built my own, and tonight I had burned theirs to the ground.